Hey fellow tankers, Mobius Y here with a brief addition to a Tank Talk review, and today we are covering the Russian hero tank of the T-54 first prototype, the Motherland variant. This is the hero tank for the Russian tech tree, similar to the US Freedom tank based off of the Super Pershing, the Liberté based off the French FCM's 50-ton, and the British Knight based off the Cromwell B. We now have the Russian Motherland tank, which is based off of a tank called the T-54 first prototype, a Tier 8 premium medium tank that we don't have available yet. So, what's good about the Motherland? It's a Tier 8 premium tank, which means you will bank good amounts of silver for decent, good, or especially great games. You can make a lot of silver really quickly with this Tier 8 premium tank. And another great thing about it is that it's been offered for free. So for those of you still grinding your Motherland and you don't have one yet, this could give you a better idea of how you would like to play your Motherland. And more importantly, if you were unable to snatch yourself a Motherland tank, stick around for this review as I will show you how you can effectively kill these pesky buggers, as they will more than likely be flooding the matchmaking for the next several weeks while people still earn them. I believe today, the day that this video goes up, will be the last day that you can earn your own free Motherland Tier 8 premium Russian tank, as well as work towards a free 1,000 gold for the Motherland Unleashed ops, which you can earn with any Russian tank in your garage, not just the Motherland. So, to start things off with this review, we're just going to jump right into the stats for the Motherland tank. So opening up the package for the Motherland tank, right away you see that it mounts pretty much the same engine as the T-44, giving you 520 horsepower. The gun is a 100mm D10TK, and it has very similar characteristics to the gun on the T-54 Lightweight, which is a Tier 8 light tank. It has 7.5 rounds per minute for a rate of fire, which is not a bad rate of fire, pretty decent for a medium tank. It can really put out the damage fairly quickly. The penetration values are probably the most disappointing aspect of the gun overall, in my personal opinion. Your standard armor-piercing ammunition only has 183 penetration. That's not much better than, say, an IS-6 at 175, or a Super Pershing at about the same value, or a T95E2, which also only has about 173 or so. Not a huge level of penetration for the standard AP rounds. The premium APCR, though, get a significant boost in penetration by over 50mm at 235 total. So a significant boost in penetration with your premium APCR rounds. Really useful for punching holes in those harder targets that you are having difficulty penetrating, or when you really need to get your damage in. The average alpha on both these types of rounds is 250. Not something scary to, say, a Tier 9 heavy tank or pretty much any Tier 10, but pretty respectable amount of damage. And with the rate of fire that this thing sports, you can spit out a fair amount of damage pretty quickly. The standard HE rounds only have 50mm of penetration, but 330 alpha damage. So an HE round or two can be useful to help take down severely softly armored targets, such as Hellcats at Tier 6, Borsigs at Tier 8, or Waffle 100s at Tier 10. Now, a couple of the other downsides to this gun is the overall aim time and accuracy. The aiming time is 2.40, which is below the game average of 2.29, so it's not that great, but it's not, it's not bad either. It's just a little bit below average. And the accuracy is only 0.36. Pretty good accuracy value, again, fairly average though. Nothing great. As I said, the gun is the biggest letdown on this tank, largely because of the penetration values. They're just simply not that good. You really need to learn the weak spots of the enemy tanks that you will come across. And since this thing steers up to Tier 10s, you really need to make use of this thing as a flanker and medium tank wolf packer. So moving on to some other stats. The chassis traverse speed is 42 degrees per second. Pretty solid and pretty standard for a medium tank to be that high. The turret armor frontally is rated at 180mm, so it is strong enough to withstand average or low penetration rolls against another Motherland shooting at the front of your turret, for example. The side armor is only 120mm, so it is quite weak. can be easily penetrated by even tier 6 tanks if they get the side of your turret, and the rear of the turret is only 75 millimeters thick. We'll go into more detail over the armor profile off of tanks.gg in just a few minutes here, so stick around and I'll show you how to kill these tanks effectively. The turret rotation speed, turret traverse speed I should say, is 40 degrees per second, so just a tad less than the track traverse, but still enough where you can quickly bring your turret around and put it on target and get shots where you want them to go. The view range of the Motherland is only 360 meters, so you can and will get outspotted by a lot of other medium tanks and light tanks at tier 8, as well as most tanks at tier 9 and pretty much any tank at tier 10, since they pretty much all sport 390 or better view range. Personally, I mount optics on my on my Motherland to try and combat this, but even so, it still takes some extra equipment and supplies and whatnot, even with the optics, to still sport a very respectable view range, well over 400 meters. And we'll get into that in a minute here. And the signal range is only 700 meters on the Motherland tank. So that's a look at the base hard stats straight in the garage. We'll take a look at some more details right here in the garage as well. The total HP of the Motherland is 1300, so about the same as a T-44. If you played the T-44 previously, working down the T-54, T-62A, Object 140 Russian medium tank grind, it will be a very familiar amount of HP. Maximum speed limit of 44 kilometers an hour. Not very quick, but it is enough to go faster than heavy tanks and keep up with most tanks that you will be more than likely wolfpacking with, such as light tanks or other medium tanks. Now, some of the armor ratings on the hull, we've already gone over the turret in the stats, so we're going to take a look at the armor values on the hull. We've got 120 millimeters on the front, and it is all very well sloped. So we'll take a look at the armor profile of where you want to shoot it frontally. And the side armor is also rated at 90 millimeters on the side. Very good value for side armor on a medium tank. This tank is actually very good at side scraping, so be sure to utilize that when you are poking corners. You don't want to come around in a peekaboo fashion and expose this side armor at a very flat angle, because it will be very easy to penetrate at a flat angle. However, when you are side scraping, this is a very good value for side armor. And the rear of the hull is only 45 millimeters, so super easy to penetrate. That is extremely weak and extremely easy for even tier 6s to penetrate if they manage to get behind you. So that's a look at the statistics and details of the Motherland tank in the garage. Let's take a look at the equipment and supplies that I used in my Motherland tank to make it work for me. Note that I do not have very many games in this tank, but most of them were pretty solid, putting up a respectable amount of damage in my opinion. So taking a look at the supplies first. First thing you'll notice is that the Motherland tank does not carry a lot of ammunition. It carries a total of 34 rounds. Another thing that is a major drawback for this tank. So I went with a straight up 20 AP and 14 premium APCR ammunition. I carry no high explosive on this because I want to make sure that I have enough ammunition to deal with any armored target that I come across, and then I have more than enough ammunition to last me throughout the game from start to end. There simply is not enough ammo capacity on this tank, I feel, to warrant carrying 2, 3, 4, or especially 5 high explosive rounds just to deal with those situations where I have a single weakly armored target in front of me to deal with. It simply does not carry enough ammo capacity, in my opinion. Now, the consumables are very standard: small repair kit, small first aid kit, and an automatic fire extinguisher to deal with being set on fire. These could be changed. You could definitely throw in a large repair and or large first aid kit, as this is a premium tank, and using either one of those large size first aid or repair kits will not hurt your silver earnings nearly as much as if it was not a premium tank. So that is totally up to you what kind of supplies you wish to, consumables you wish to run on your Motherland tank. This is the setup that has simply worked for me so far. Let's take a look at the equipment that I used. Again, note that I have not played a heck of a lot of games in this tank, but the games that I did play, as I said, they were pretty solid. So this is what has worked for me so far. This should look quite obvious. Standard medium tank setup, medium caliber tank gun rammer, vertical stabilizer Mark 1 to improve the accuracy and dispersion on the move, and coated optics to, as I said, improve on that not so great 360 meters of view range. With the coated optics, you have 396 meters of view range. So if you have a half-decent crew with several skills on it, they're more likely going to have brothers in arms trained on them, so you will have over 400 meters of view range. And there are still ways to extend that further by either putting on extra combat rations or vents or however you see fit. If you were to change out any pieces of equipment, though, it would probably be the coated optics, and you could change it out to a couple other things such as enhanced gun laying drive. If the gun handling really, really bothers you, it's not terrible. The aim time is slightly below average, but it is still quite manageable. But if you simply can't stand it, you could mount an enhanced gun laying drive to improve it just a little bit better. You could also put on something such as improved ventilation to improve all aspects of your tank. This would not only increase your reload speed, but also increase your view range, increase the gun handling and aim time, so on and so forth. So that's totally up to you. And this thing is actually fairly prone to ammo rack damage, so if it really bothers you, you could put on a wet ammo rack. Personally, I would simply recommend train safe stowage on your permanent Motherland crew, or train safe stowage on as many of your Russian crews as possible if you're going to use them in your own Motherland tank. So that's a quick look at the supplies and equipment that I used in my Motherland to make it successful for me. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the armor profile on the always useful tanks.gg website, taking a look at the T-54 first prototype in just a second here. Stick around. Alright, so here we are in tanks.gg, taking a look at the armor model for the T-54 first prototype, which is the tank model that the Motherland is based on. So, right away here, you see some very thick plating rated at 180. This is the turret face. As we saw in the garage, 180 millimeters of thickness on the front of the turret. The sides of the turret around on the front, on these angled plates here, still on the front of the turret but angled, you got 150 millimeters of thickness. And on the hull, as displayed, 120 millimeters of thickness. And it's not just the upper front plate that has that strong 120 millimeter thick plate. It is also the lower plate of the T-54 first prototype. It's not angled as sharply as the upper front plate, though, so its effective value is actually about 30 millimeters less than the upper front plate. So that's just a brief look at the frontal armor profile of the T-54 first prototype, or Motherland. So basically, where you want to shoot it if you are in a Motherland of your own, the lower plate is not a guaranteed penetration for damage, as when it is angled, the value of its armor will increase, making it harder to penetrate. For sure, you do want to avoid the upper front plate for the most part, unless you have at least 200 millimeters of penetration. So really high penetration tank destroyer guns at tier 8 or tier 9 fully upgraded heavies, or basically most any tier 10 tank, so long as it's not angled sharply. But my favorite place to smack a Motherland is right in the face of the turret. You've got only 180 millimeters of spaced armor directly to the left and the right of the gun. So the effective armor is barely 180 millimeters in most spots. You get the odd sloping or piece where it jumps up to 198 for some reason, as well as the plating directly outside the gun mantlet is also in some areas rated only 180 millimeters. It's generally the front of the turret where you've got this flat piece here, not the rounded bits at the top and the bottom, just right in the middle of the turret to the left or the right of the gun barrel. It's only about 180 millimeters effective armor. So a really high penetration gun, say what I like to do in my IS-8, I would simply aim right there. 258 millimeters of penetration, easy damage right there in the turret face of the Motherland. So frontally, that is how you want to combat an enemy Motherland tank. Obviously, as I said, 90 millimeters of side armor, pretty good for side scraping. You don't have to angle it. You can angle it quite a bit, and it will still be a fairly effective armor value. Like so, only angling it about 20 degrees out. This is actually kind of dangerous side scraping in my opinion, but lower penetration guns with only 200 or less penetration will still have difficulty penetrating your side armor, even if you're side scraping out at this angle. However, if you come around even further on the side, this side becomes very flat. That 90 millimeters of side armor is extremely flat and easy to penetrate if you can get around on this Motherland tank's sides. Simply put shots just above the tracks for maximum penetration capabilities. You can also shoot directly into the tracks if you get it around a Motherland tank's side. Just be aware it's more likely that the tracks will simply absorb the hit and you will do no damage. And of course, the very back of the Motherland tank, the hull is only 45 millimeters, so if you've got a shot in the back of the Motherland, just take it. It's very likely that you will penetrate unless you're at an auto bounce angle. The very back of the turret is also fairly weak at 75 millimeters, so even tier 6s will penetrate this no problem. And there's a very high chance that you'll ammo rack the tank at this angle. Personally, what I like to do is, because the Motherland tank is available for free, so there is a lot of people playing it that are not sure how to use it effectively. So you see a lot of people peeking around a corner like so, with their front plate angled so much it'll just be an auto ricochet, so you don't want to shoot it anyways. Where you want to shoot is right here in the front drive wheel of the tracks, causing both track damage and inflicting damage on their HP pool. Same thing if they come around the corner on this side here, but personally I hope that if they're on my left they come around the corner this way, as this part of the hull behind the tracks, there's a lot of ammo rack potential right there. So a shot right here will not only track and immobilize this tank and cause HP damage, there's also a very good chance that you will ammo rack it, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment here. So that is my advice on how to kill a T-54 first prototype Motherland variant. So some other base stats for the Motherland tank. It has less than 2,000 DPM. Not a very good value of DPM. Other Tier 8 medium tanks will easily out DPM a Motherland, especially an Object 416, which has the highest DPM of all Tier 8 medium tanks. So you definitely don't want to take one on one. About half of the Tier 8 medium tanks will out DPM a Motherland, but if you are smart and use the frontal armor to the best of your ability, you can cause some bounces and wind up killing them first. The overall dispersion when moving, traversing the tank, or traversing the turret, they are quite good values. A bit lower than some other tanks. Let's just bring up a quick compare. I'm going to try and bring up the T-44, which is a pretty good tank to compare this with. As soon as I find it here. Brain fart. Everybody's waiting, Mobius. Hurry up, Mobius. What the hell? Alright, sorry about that. Anyways, comparing to the T-44, if you played the T-44 before, as I said, it should feel very familiar. It's a similar hull configuration, and the turret itself looks similar too. The moving tank traverse and turret traverse dispersion values are slightly worse than the T-44, but not by much. The T-44 also sports way less DPM with its top gun, especially the 122 millimeter cannon, than the T-54 Mod 1. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. Your horsepower to ton ratio is quite a bit worse in the T-54 first prototype. It's just a heavier tank. And the top engine in the T-44 gives you 680 horsepower. The V-44 engine is one of the earlier engines on the T-44, so the T-44 gets a much better top engine for sure. Now the gun constraints on the Motherland tank, the T-54 first prototype, you get 17 degrees of gun elevation and 6 degrees of gun depression. So that's essentially a look at the T-54 first prototype Motherland. Keep in mind that Tanks.gg uses statistical analysis based off of the PC version, so these values for armor or dispersion or whatever might not be exact, but it gives you a really good idea of what this tank is capable of. It has pretty strong frontal armor, as we showed, but the turret face can still be abused and penetrated with high penetration guns. If you have at least 220 millimeters of penetration and you're facing off against an enemy Motherland, you can simply shoot it right in the turret face, as even that is weaker than the upper and lower front plates. The lower front plate is a good spot to aim for as well. However, if you're a much taller tank aiming down at the T-54 first prototype, that angle becomes much more sharp and that effective armor in the lower plate becomes much better. So if you're simply aiming down at the 54 first prototype, this front plate is only 120 millimeters thick effective armor value. So if you are able to get your gun down low enough to simply shoot right through it, it should be an easy penetration right there. So that is an in-depth look at the T-54 first prototype Motherland. Let's go ahead and take a look at the module and crew locations for the Motherland tank. So looking at the front of the Motherland, You've got ammo rack on the right side of the hull, as I mentioned previously. This can get hit if you take shots in the front of the tracks, especially if somebody comes out a corner at an angle. You can get a shot through the front drive wheel on the right side of the hull, not only tracking them, but also possibly damaging their ammo rack. The driver sits on the left side, directly opposite of the ammo rack, directly beneath the driver port in the left side of the hull. If you are able to penetrate that part of the hull, very likely you will take him out and cripple the mobility of the T-54 first prototype Motherland. On the left side of the hull, the driver is still vulnerable behind the tracks to the left side of that driver's port. So same you can do with the ammo rack on the right side of the hull, you can do it to the driver on the left side of the hull, making it much harder for a Motherland to simply swoop around a corner and try to circle you. The left side of the turret also has the gunner sitting in the very front of the turret. It's very easy for him to get killed by high penetration guns shooting straight through the front of the turret. Behind the gunner you have the commander sitting underneath the commander's hatch. Pretty easy for him to get taken out if somebody is able to get a shot in the back of your turret. And in the very back of the turret itself, there is all ammo rack there. So if you ever get the chance to shoot the back of a Motherland's turret, take it. There's a good possibility you will damage their ammo rack and cripple their reload speed. The back of the hull behind the tracks also sports engine and fuel compartments, so multiple shots there will set this tank on fire. It's very vulnerable to fire from the rear, hence why I personally mount an automatic fire extinguisher. Looking at the back of the Motherland, as I said, the very back of the turret, that whole area is vulnerable to ammo rack damage. So if you ever get the chance to shoot a Motherland in the back of the turret, take it. Good possibility you will inflict some ammo rack damage. And the very back of the hull, in the lower parts between the tracks, is where the engine compartment sits. If you hit that, this thing is not going anywhere. The replay we show ahead will show you just how badly the Motherland moves around with a damaged engine. And we'll see that in just a minute here. And lastly, on the right side of the Motherland, more fuel tank and engine compartments in the back of the hull behind the tracks. You've got more ammo rack potential locations in the very back of the turret on the right hand side. The loader is on the right hand side of the turret, directly opposite the commander. And as I mentioned, in the hull, in the front of the hull, behind the tracks, you have much more ammo rack potential right there. As I said, if you get a nice angled shot through the front drive wheel of somebody poking around a corner, almost side on to you in a Motherland tank, simply shoot it in the front drive wheel to track them, but also potentially cause some ammo rack damage while they are immobilized. So that's an in-depth look at the Motherland tank, how you can protect yours and prevent yourself from getting killed really early, as well as how to kill one yourself if you wind up facing off against them in your own game. As I said, it's a fairly mobile tank, and it can do some damage if you are able to utilize its flanking capabilities, as well as its wolf packing capabilities. You know, playing it like you would a standard medium tank, it can be very effective in the right hands, but you really do have to know what you are doing. As when I was playing with my own Motherland tank, I had some crazy games where I racked up significant amounts of damage and either reflecting a lot off of my side armor or simply absorbing a lot of shots into my tracks because the people that I was shooting against simply did not know how to deal with me. And you'll see those replays in another video that I'll upload a little later today. But let's take a look at this battle here, where I am in a 3-man platoon with A1 QPT-99 and my buddy El Matador. All three of us in Motherland tanks. Surprisingly, not a huge amount of Motherland tanks in this game, only 4 per team. We're fairly top tier. There's a significant amount of tier 8 tanks on both teams, with a few tier 7 and tier 6 to support them. So as usual, on steeps, we're going to go to the right-hand side. 10 seconds in, I'm simply trying to find my platoon mates and make sure that we have communication. So the first little bit here of every game is always positioning, positioning, positioning. Also trying to keep an eye on the map to see if we have any support coming with us. There is a significant firepower coming down this way with us, as it is just, even if it is just the 3 of us. As 3 Motherland tanks, if we have adequate focus fire, we can effectively deal with almost anything that comes our way, so long as we don't get YOLO rushed by half their team, so to speak. So you'll see the effects of my coated optics coming into play here, using the Motherland tank as I would any other medium, trying to get a forward position, peek over the hill, and just simply spot what's coming our way. As I said, the Motherland does not have a great view range at only It's 360 meters of view range base, but that can be extended quite a bit with coded optics and various crew skills such as Brothers in Arms, situational awareness, and recon. You can easily sport over 400 meters of view range, making you a much more useful asset for spotting, especially in Tier 10 games. So first off, taking a pot shot on the Type 58, trying to get into position. Now this FCM 50 ton comes out, exposing himself. I try to get a shot into his side, but his tracks absorb it, and I deal no damage to him. It is unfortunate that I flubbed that shot, but things happen. So seeing his partner in the Super Pershing, I know they're platooned, so the Super Pershing looks like he's just going to go straight in. So I plant a quick shot into the side of the Super Pershing, getting some quick damage in on him. So my platoon mates are down in the valley below me, and I'm above them, trying to get some more spots on who was coming our way, and we have zero support from the rest of our team. So I know it is up to us, so I'm simply trying to peek out and spot exactly what we're faced off against. I come around and simply auto-lock the VK-30, pop a shot into him, he gets a good shot into my side armor. Super Pershing coming up after me, I realize, okay guys, we need to push in together on this FCM 50 ton. And now you will see a nice Motherland wolf pack as we all focus down the FCM 50 ton first. With all three of us shooting down at this FCM 50 ton together, he is simply not going to last very long. I quickly repair my ammo rack and the 50 ton goes down. Now we focus our attention on the Type 58. He should be only a 2-shot kill. Both me and Matador put a shot into him. He's on life support, so I simply let Matador take the kill there. And AQP takes the kill on the VK-30, leaving us just the Super Pershing behind us. And as you can see, I'm not even breaking 20 kilometers an hour because after using my repair kit, my engine got damaged immediately afterwards. And this is a problem with having a 520 horsepower engine on a tank that is as heavy as the Motherland. So Matty has the most health. He pushes around on the Super Pershing. I simply wait for my chance to shoot the Super Pershing in the side of the turret, put a nice punishing shot into his turret side, waiting until I can get one more into his backside. That's when I realize I just got shot in the back. I'm on life support. I need to pull back and get myself behind some cover and try and turn my front towards the enemy. Turns out it's a Churchill 7 that shot me in the back. Not sure if he was able to get another shot into my backside there. He could have very easily killed me before I came around the corner. But I'm able to get into my position here with Matty and AQP backing me up. We're trying to shoot this Churchill 7 right through his turret face, as that is the weakest part of this tank frontally. So several shots from me and Matty into this Churchill 7. We managed to take him down pretty quickly. Unfortunately, a Liberté came out behind us, took out AQP, and before I can get another reload off, he takes me down as well. So a bit late in realizing that there was a Liberté flanking around behind us, but it is what it is. For the amount of time that we were over there and for how outnumbered we were actually able to dish out some pretty good pain right there. And as you can see, Matty with 4 and AQP with 1, we were able to kill 5 enemy tanks with just the 3 of us. Technically being outnumbered 2-1, still taking down most of them with us. So that's a very short game to show you guys kind of what the Motherland is fairly capable of, especially in wolf packing and focus fire situations, as well as being able to bounce some shots. Finishing off with just under 2,500 damage, 10 penetrating hits, making over 137,000 silver that game, earning a nice sniper medal. With our whole platoon being near the top of the leaderboard. So not a great game, but not a terrible one either. Wasn't too bad. Really felt like sharing that one with you guys for this quick review, so that the video doesn't wind up being 40 minutes long. Anyway, so that's a quick little synopsis on the Motherland tank. I hope that gives you an idea of what to expect when you play it, and more importantly, how you can kill these tanks if you see them on the enemy team. As I said, there's probably going to be a lot of them playing in the Tier 8 range for the next several weeks here, as it was a free premium tank, and a lot of people are still earning theirs, even today on the very last day where it's possible to earn it through ops alone. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you would like to see more Motherland game replays, I will have some more uploaded a little later today, so stick around and feel free to watch those videos as well on how you can also effectively use your Motherland against other opponents, especially other Motherland tanks. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. This has been Mobius Y, and I'll see you on the battlefield. Happy tanking.